In the suffocating dark of a sealed chamber, gold glitters brighter than the sun. For 3,000 years, the sands have hidden a civilization that didn't just want to rule the world, they wanted to conquer death itself. They turned stone into mountains, and men into gods. But beneath the polished obsidian and the thunderous glory of the Pharaohs lies a terrifying truth about the price of immortality. This is not just history, it is humanity's most audacious gamble against time. Welcome to the land of the eternal. Rewind 5 millennia. The globe is largely silent. Europe is a scatter of tribal fires flickering in the deep forests. The great powers of the East are still in their infancy. But here, in the northeast corner of Africa, the silence is broken by the rhythmic crash of the hammer. A narrow, defiant ribbon of green slashes through the endless, scorching yellow of the Sahara. This is the Nile. It is a geological miracle, a pulse of water in a graveyard of sand. To the people standing on its banks, the universe is divided into two absolute, warring colors. Kemet, the black land, the rich, dark mud where the river floods, where grain swells and civilization breathes. And Deshret, the red land, the brutal, infinite desert that starts exactly where the water stops. One step is life, the next is death. In this fragile corridor, isolated by sea and sand, the impossible happens. Around 3100 BC, the upper and lower kingdoms violently fuse into a single, terrifyingly organized force. While the rest of humanity is barely surviving, Egypt is already charting the heavens, creating a world of perfect order surrounded by chaotic emptiness. They are an island of gold in a sea of dust. The air here shimmers with heat. The sun is not just a celestial body, it is a physical weight, pressing down on a landscape dominated by the only thing more durable than the desert: stone. Millions of tons of limestone and granite are dragged from the earth. The soundscape is a cacophony of groaning rollers, cracking whips, and the rhythmic chanting of 10,000 men pulling in unison. They are not building shelters, they are terraforming. At Giza, the horizon is hijacked by geometry. The Great Pyramid rises, not as the beige, eroded ruin we see today, but as a blinding, polished, white mountain. Encased in smooth Tura limestone, it reflects the sun with such intensity it can be seen for miles. A beacon of artificial light in a natural world. To stand at its base is to feel infinitely small. The capstone, possibly plated in electrum, catches the first ray of dawn, while the valley below is still plunged in shadow. Further south, in Karnak and Luxor, the architecture changes. It becomes claustrophobic and colossal. They build forests of stone, massive columns etched with hieroglyphs, mimicking the papyrus reeds of the Nile, but petrified into eternity. Every inch is painted in vibrant blues, reds, and golds, a psychedelic explosion of color hidden within the gloom of the sanctuary. They engineered these structures to outlast the stars. They believed that by stacking massive stones, they could pin down the very structure of time, locking their civilization into a permanent present. But stone is heavy, and sand is shifting. They built their eternity on the edge of a river that was as fickle as it was generous, unaware that the foundation of their power was far more fluid than the granite walls suggested. Step away from the cool shadows of the temple gates. Leave the silence of the stone and step into the blinding heat of the street. Here, the air smells of roasting duck, cumin, and unwashed bodies. While the pharaohs gaze at the stars, the people look at the mud. Egypt is not a monolith. It is a machine of flesh and blood. At the center of the noise sits a man in silence, the scribe. Cross-legged, papyrus stretched across his lap, he holds the true power of the empire in a reed brush. He records the height of the flood, the yield of the harvest, and the name of every criminal. In a world of illiterate laborers, the man who can write is a magician. He turns reality into ink, and ink into law. Cut to the riverbank. The reality for the 99% is not gold, but grain. Farmers stand knee-deep in the black sludge, their skin baked like leather, driving cattle through the marsh. Life here is a grinding cycle of sowing and reaping. They are paid not in coin, but in bread and beer. A thick, nutritious, porridge-like brew that fuels the workforce. They are drunk, they are tired, and they are alive. They are surprisingly like us. They obsess over fashion, outlining their eyes in heavy black coal, partly for vanity, partly to ward off the glare of the sun and the swarm of flies. They write love poems on shards of pottery. They go on strike when the garlic runs out. They fear the tax collector more than the crocodile. But beneath the laughter of the market and the rhythm of the loom, there is a rigid, crushing weight. This society is a pyramid of human spines. Every block in the Great Pyramid represents a back broken, a life shortened, a family left grieving. The absolute order of the state demands absolute submission. The farmer feeds the soldier guards the priest, and the priest blesses the pharaoh. It is a perfect system, a well-oiled engine of prosperity, but engines overheat. And when the people below begin to starve, the gods above begin to tremble. The secret to Egypt's endurance wasn't just the river, it was the idea that controlled it. While other civilizations were loose collections of feuding warlords, Egypt invented the concept of the nation-state. And at the helm of this state, they placed a weapon more powerful than any bronze sword: the living God. The pharaoh is not merely a king, he is the bridge between the earth and the sky. When he raises his mace to smite an enemy, he is not fighting a war, he is maintaining ma'at, cosmic order. Without him, the sun does not rise. Without him, the Nile does not flood. This psychological stranglehold allows for a mobilization of labor unparalleled in human history. It turns a population of farmers into a unified biological machine capable of altering the geography of the planet. See the wealth flow into Thebes. The Nile acts as a frictionless highway, a conveyor belt of prosperity. Massive barges drift north with the current and sail south with the wind, carrying granite, gold, and soldiers. Under warrior kings like Thutmose III, the Egyptian war machine adopts the technology of their enemies. The horse-drawn chariot, they perfect it. They become the thunder of the plains, expanding the borders until the empire stretches from the Nubian gold mines in the south to the Euphrates River in the north. Foreign princes bow in the dust. Tribute pours in: ivory, cedar, lapis lazuli, and exotic animals. The granaries are bursting. The scribes can barely count the cattle. Egypt is the apex predator of the Bronze Age, an economy so robust it seems invulnerable. But this absolute centralization is a double-edged sword. By concentrating all power, all wealth, and all divine authority into the body of a single, mortal man, they created a system with a fatal flaw. They built a society that required a god to run it. But gods don't age. Gods don't have incompetent heirs. Gods don't get murdered in their sleep. They have entrusted the fate of millions to a single heartbeat. And when that heart falters, the chaos waiting outside the walls doesn't just knock, it breaks the door down. The sun sets, the tomb closes. We descend into the dark. The air is stale, thick with the smell of cedar oil, natron salt, and ancient dust. To the Egyptian mind, death is not an end. It is a high-stakes migration. The body is gutted, dried, and wrapped in hundreds of yards of linen. A golden mask is placed over the face, an idealized freezing of time, so the soul, the Ka, can recognize itself upon returning. But the body is just the vessel. The soul has woken up in the duat, a nightmare underworld of lakes of fire and gatekeeping demons. Look at the walls. They are not merely decoration. They are instruction manuals. The Book of the Dead. Every hieroglyph is a spell, a cheat code, a desperate plea to navigate the terrors of the dark. Finally, the soul stands trembling in the Hall of Truth. The jackal-headed god, Anubis, waits by a golden scale. In one pan, he places the feather of truth. In the other, he places your heart. The room is silent. The gods are watching. If your heart is heavy with sin, if it outweighs the feather, there is no redemption. There is no hell. There is only Amet, the devourer, waiting in the shadows with the head of a crocodile and the body of a lion. He eats your soul. You vanish. Total, absolute oblivion. This was the fear that built the pyramids. Not a fear of pain, but a fear of being forgotten. Eternity is a lie. It didn't end with a whimper. It ended with fire. Around 1177 BC, the horizon darkened. A mysterious, terrifying wave of confederated warriors, known as the Sea Peoples, swept across the Mediterranean, erasing cities from the map. They crashed against the Nile Delta like a tsunami of iron and blood. Ramses III fought them off, turning the river red with the slaughter. But the cost was fatal. The treasury emptied, the empire cracked. Then, the ultimate betrayal. The Nile failed, the climate shifted, the floods didn't come, the green ribbon turned to brown dust. The living God stood on the banks, chanting the rituals, commanding the waters to rise, and the river ignored him. The illusion of divine control shattered. Panic replaced order. The workmen, starving and unpaid, did the unthinkable. They marched into the Valley of the Kings. Under the cover of night, they broke the seals they had carved. They cracked open the heavy sarcophagi. They smashed the faces of their ancestors to scrape the gold from the wood. It was anarchy. Libyans raided from the west. Nubians seized the south. The temples were looted. The statues toppled. And the great library scrolls were used as kindling. The sun continued to beat down on the limestone, but the chanting had stopped. The sand, patient and relentless, began to drift over the walls, reclaiming the monuments. The greatest civilization on Earth had run out of time. The pharaohs are dust. Their golden masks stare out from glass cases, stripped of their magic. Yet, they won their gamble. They failed to preserve their bodies, but they conquered the future. Every time a doctor writes a prescription, every time an architect draws a line, every time a nation builds a monument to its own greatness, the echo of Egypt rings out. They taught us that while flesh is temporary, the human spirit can build things that refuse to die. This story is only one part of our human odyssey. In our next video, we journey south, up the Nile, to the land of archers and gold, to meet the only power that dared to conquer the pyramid builders, the kingdom of Kush, the Black Pharaohs. Subscribe to join the expedition. We are still reading their walls. We are still dreaming their dreams. As long as we speak their names, they never truly died.